Hulu, your president, and
Isaac supposed to be, but he's not here, so we can have somebody else do the Toastmaster.
now I'd like to welcome our Toastmaster for today, Mr. Jason Pendergast.
Thank you, Gavel Club. Let me bring up the agenda real quick. I'd like to first start off by introducing our grammarian, Amir. Come explain your role.
Good afternoon, Toastmasters. As grammarian, I am responsible to pay close attention to everybody's, to all speakers, listening for common words such as and, what. And I'll also look for the word of the day, which is acumen, defined as the ability to make good judgments and quick decisions, typically in a particular domain. An example is her business acumen helped her navigate the complex negotiations successfully.
Thank you. I'd now like to bring up our timer. Xavier.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As a timer, I'll be keeping track of each time speaking's portion of the meeting. Our first will be our speeches, which will be first one 5 to 7 minutes. So at the 5-minute mark, my background will turn green. At the 6-minute mark, my background will turn yellow. And at the 7-minute mark, my background will turn red, in which you have 30 minutes to finish up your speech. And since our second speech is a icebreaker, it'll be 4 to 6 minutes. So at 4 minutes, my background will turn green. At 5 minutes, my background will turn yellow. And at 7 minutes, my background will turn red, in which you also have 30 seconds to finish up your speech. Next time portion will be the table topics, in which every person called upon has 1 to 2 minutes to finish up their impromptu speech. From 1 to 2 minutes, 1 minute, my background will turn green, 1 minute 30, yellow, and 2 minutes red. A final time portion will be both our evaluators, from 2 to 3 minutes per evaluation. So at 2-minute mark, my background will turn green, 2 minute 30 yellow, and 3 minute red, in which you also have 30 seconds to finish up. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Xavier. And now let's bring up our first evaluator, Tim, to introduce our first speaker.
I was not evaluating Andy's speech. I'm not certain if you sent me a meeting.
No, I'm sorry, I
Okay.
didn't.
What, do you know what project you're doing?
It's organize your speech.
Organize your speech, okay. Organize your speech, I'll be going off the manual book and evaluating your speech based off of your organizational skills and how prepared you are for the speech. And also, I'll look into anything other worthy of note, and I'll give you an evaluation at the end of the meeting for your speech.
I'm sorry. Would you state these objectives?
Okay. So the objectives for your speech would be to select an appropriate outline which allows the listeners to easily follow and understand your speech. Make your message clear with supporting material directly contributing to that message. Using appropriate transitions when moving from one idea to another and creating a strong opening and conclusion. So without further ado, you can come up and start your speech.
Thank you, Toastmaster Tim, and good evening, Toastmasters. Today I want to talk to you about the Anglo-Zanzibar War. Now, when you think of wars, you normally think of battles that last years, even decades, right? I mean, take the 100-year war between the British Empire and the French. That lasted 116 years. On average, most wars last 4 to 6 years. But what if I told you there was a war that lasted only less than an hour, actually? In 1896, the Anglo-Zanzibar War unfolded with surprising speed, leaving a mark on history as the world's shortest armed conflict. Today, I want to talk to you about the consequences of the war, the rapid events, and the causes of it. But first, some background. Zanzibar is an island located off of East Africa, near what's now called Tanzania. It sits right on a major Indian trade route and was a big hub for the East African slave trade, with tens of thousands of people being traded through its ports every single year. For this reason, in the mid-19th century, after the British was done conquering the rest of the world, they set their eyes on Zanzibar. They wanted control over its trade routes, yes, but they also had another mission. They wanted to abolish slave trade and transport in the region, especially after passing their own Slavery Abolition Act in 1833. So, in 1873, they pressured the Zanzibar's ruling sultan to ban all slave trade and transport on the island. This was easier said than done, though, so they gave the ruling sultans 3 key rules to follow. Number 1, they wanted the complete banning of all trade and transport in their territory. Number 2, they wanted them to keep close economic and political ties with the British. And number 3, they wanted major influence over diplomatic decisions, including who was sultan. Now, under the British rule, there are 3 sultans that ruled. The first was Sultan Bargash, who ruled from 1870 to 1888. He wasn't exactly a fan of having his hands tied by the British, but he realized that resisting would spell out bad news for him. So he played along. Despite that, the British still kept a close eye on him. The second one was Khalifa, who took over in 1888. He wasn't a fan of the British oversight either, and despite his fear of what they would do if they caught him, he still kept up some of the practices in secret. He had a pretty uneventful rule until his death in 1890, where his cousin made his first attempted power grab to the throne. His cousin was Khalid bin Bagash, and he claimed himself to be the heir to the throne and sultan. The British persuaded him to back down and step aside to their more preferred candidate, Hamad, could step up and be sultan. And in 1893, that's exactly what Hamad did. Hamad was the British's favorite sultan. He followed all of their rules and had a loyal following of 1,000 trained soldiers. Under his ruling, the island was relatively peaceful and calm, following each of the British's rules. But this all changed with his sudden death in 1996, 1996, where he died under very suspicious circumstances, with most people suspecting poison. Seizing his opportunity, at the word of Hamad's death, Khalid ran to the palace and hunkered down with his 1,000 soldiers, refusing to back down for the British's next preferred sultan. The British decided to play it cool. They thought, last time Khalid did this, we could negotiate him out of the throne. So they tried, but they failed, because Khalid was very determined to stay in power this time. So the British gave him an ultimatum. Either get out of the palace by 9 a.m. the next morning, or they would declare war. The palace was right on the waterfront, in clear sight of the British warships, and was a point-blank situation for them. Khalid's army, on the other hand, only had a few modern weapons and had to brush off some antiques from the 1600s to try to defend themselves. Despite this, though, Khalid was confident that they wouldn't declare war and said, "We won't back down. We don't think you're going to pull an attack on us." But unfortunately for him, the British were bluffing. They got the go from London early the next morning. So when the clock rang 9 times, on August 27, 1896, the British warships opened fire on the palace, destroying it and most of the surrounding area in flames and rubble. Despite this, Khalid somehow managed to escape and sought German asylum, but he suffered over 500 casualties to his team, while only one British sailor got wounded during the fight. After all was said and done, Khalid ran to German territory where he was later caught and sent to exile on St. Helena, the same place where Napoleon was exiled. Thankfully for him, his exile was not permanent, and after he served his time, he was duly released, marking the end of his wild and short-lived rule. In conclusion, the Anglo-Zaziban War was a war that unfolded with explosive speed, and it really shaped the trajectory of the island, making sure that no future sultans would ever try to defy British authority again. They made sure there would be no further resistance with the compliance and the abolition of the slave trade on the island from the sultans. Thank you.
Speech, Toastmaster Candy. Next, I'll bring up myself to evaluate Sophia with her icebreaker. Sophia, I'll be looking for what aspects of your speech are your strong points. Does the audience really get to know who you are? Have you reflected adequate preparation? I'll be evaluating your body language, tone, clarity of voice, and how loud you speak. Also, is your speech organized? Does it have an opening, a body, and a conclusion? How often you have to refer to your notes? And then what you could have done different or improvement ideas. And then last but not least, and definitely the best, aspects of your speech that I like. Oh, so close, so yeah. So with that, I have to bring up Toastmaster Sophia.
My name is Sophia Tsai. I'm going to give an introductory speech about who I am, where I came from, and yeah. So my journey begins in Taipei, Taiwan, where my earliest memories are painted with warmth of family and a familiar hum of traffic and tall, crowded buildings, a calm atmosphere, but like never a dull moment. And I lived in Taiwan until I was like 2 to 3, and I visit regularly. So I have like a good idea of the culture and how like, rich it is and whatnot. So after I moved away from Taiwan, I moved to America, and I lived in Los Angeles, California for like 8 years. And the transition was a little difficult for me at first because I had a hard time adapting to the language. I was in ESL till 2nd, 3rd grade. And after I really felt like I was like in the community and established my role as like a friend and like all my family members in the area, I had to move to Germantown, Tennessee. And that was quite difficult for me because I was really isolated, I didn't have any friends, and I had a hard time adjusting. But then COVID-19 hit, and that really catalyzed that like insecurity and shyness in me. But during COVID-19, I had a lot of chances to have hobbies, and I really picked up art as a form of expression. I filled 14 sketchbooks to the brim while the summer before COVID and the summer after COVID. I would draw anything under the sun. I would draw outlets on the walls, charging cords, screws, animals, insects. My mother really wanted me to get into pre-med, and she would buy me a bunch of anatomy books. I would draw the ligaments, muscles, skulls, bone structure, everything. Like, I was absolutely obsessed. So after I found my passion in art, I really wanted to find other ways to express myself, and I enjoyed reading, specifically like true crime, stuff like that. It was quite liberating to see the highs and lows of life and the reality of it, and that led me to get into law and justice, whatnot, and yeah, okay. I found a community within that, and I made a lot of connections, and that led me to join a lot of clubs like mock trial and debate, and yeah, and from those connections, I also joined HOSA and International and Asian Club as like friends who introduced me to those clubs from mock trial and really gave me a good sense of community and led me to explore a lot of different aspects and different careers. Although I have discovered that I really don't enjoy medical stuff being in HOSA, I still want to give it a second chance and really try it out again, you know, maybe meet new people, maybe find another area of the medical field. But yeah, that's pretty much one of the challenges I'm facing right now is thinking about what I'm gonna do in the future and where I'm gonna go. And yeah.
Thank you, Sophia. Nice speech. Next, I'd like to introduce our table topics master. Eric's not here, so congratulations, Deanna. Thank you for volunteering. Next up, Toastmaster Deanna with her table topics. It's you, Gilbert. Gilbert.
Would you rather live in Los Angeles for entire life or New York? Isaac.
So the question is, would I rather live in New York for the rest of my life or Los Angeles? And the question is a no-brainer, it's Los Angeles, because New York is way too expensive. If we think paying $400,000 for a house nowadays is expensive, you're paying like over $1 million for your average house in New York. I've done my research on this before for a project, and it is absurd. Food, absurd. Crime, absurd. Just because it is a big city with nice views does not mean it's a good place to live. Los Angeles, on the other hand, even though, yeah, I'd have to do with the occasional drought and the occasional heat wave and the occasional city-destroying wildfire, much better environment than New York. And some parts of it will live up to the stereotype that you'll see in movies, with rats in the street and trash everywhere. There are some bad parts like that. And me personally, it is not a place where I would like to live or surround my family around. So I'm going with Los Angeles for my own safety. Thank you.
If someone offered you $1 million, but it would shorten your life for 10 years, would you take it? Mia.
I would question if I take $1 million, my life will shorten by 10 years. And my answer is yes. There is no question why I should not just take the money. And minus 10 years of my life, I don't know how long I'll survive in the first place, but like money right now sounds really good. Maybe I can go invest that into something, make more money, and that is my goal in life, and then I no longer have to work. That is my entire goal. Thank you.
your favorite vacation spot? Horse.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
What is your favorite vacation spot?
Excellent question. What is my favorite vacation spot? I have three. The first one is New York. I know Isaac just spoke ill of New York. However, New York is where it's happening. My second is Los Angeles. I know he spoke highly of Los Angeles. My third one, believe it or not, is Egypt. And here's why. I'm going to go around the long way to get to the reason why. But my name is Horace. If you've done a little bit of research, you will know that in ancient Egypt, way back when, they had this kind of god figure with the name of Horus. So that had to become my favorite place because the very first time I went there, I was introduced to Heru, or Horus, what we refer to today. And then when I started to look into the history books about this Horus figure or character, I saw so many parallels to today's Christian icon. So I said, how is it that there was a figure before the figure, and then I am saddled with the name Horus? Well, when I got to the end of the story, and I said, Egypt, New York, Los Angeles. Egypt, New York, Los Angeles. And when you try and say that really fast, you guys should try it. It will twist your tongue in such a way that you'll start shaking. So, that's my favorite place, Liana. Egypt, Los Angeles, and New York. That was a horrible story, right? Thank you for the question.
Would you rather have a pet cat or dog? Amor.
Would I rather have a pet cat or dog? I would choose dogs because I wouldn't say I never had a pet in my house, but my family members grew up with dogs, and my mom had a cat in her past. But cats can be really mean, and you gotta sometimes you'll be lucky to get a good cat that isn't mean and doesn't scratch you or bite you, and they'll like listen to you. But with dogs, you can train them, and they'll be nice to you, and they're like a person's best friend, as what everybody says. And the fact that you can like put them in cute costumes, I feel like they look cuter than cats. And dogs overall are just really cool and fun to be around, and they'll make you laugh. That's I would do the dog.
If you could go to any school, what school would you choose? Amira. The question is if I can go to any school, which school I would go to. I am currently attending White Station High School, and I think it is a really good school. I met my friends there, and I have been to some clubs. I really enjoy the school, so I think if I can choose, I would still attend White Station High School. Thank you. favorite farm animal? Xavier.
The question is, what is my favorite farm animal? Well, my favorite farm animal have to go with a dog. Although it's not a traditional farm animal, lots of farmers use dogs to help control the other animals on their farm. So technically, you could say a dog is a farm animal. Now, the reason why I chose the dog out of all the other animals that could be on the farm is because dog is known as man's best friend. And as a former dog owner, I love dogs and grew up with dogs my whole entire life. So naturally, I'm closer to dogs than any other animal. Also, in addition to that, whenever I'm around dogs, dogs tend to like me just naturally. So out of all farm animals, I'd have to go with a dog. Thank you for the question.
What is your favorite sports team?
My favorite football team, and I'm recording the game at home, so no spoiler alerts, but I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. We won more championships than any team in the history of football, going back to the old days before Super Bowls. We've also had the second most Hall of Famers. And what's really awesome for me as being a Packer fan is, one, I've only experienced maybe 2 or 3 losing seasons in my football watching days since I was 12-year-old. And it's a time for me and my dad to bond on the couch watching the Packers because he's a diehard Packer fan as well. My favorite football player is Brett Favre. I grew up, he was my sports hero. Now that I'm older, I realize the athletes just have a better job than me, so they're not really idolized like when I was a kid. But I enjoyed watching him dominate the football field and showed his toughness and wasn't scared of anything. So my favorite football team is the Green Bay Packers. Now in baseball season, I like the St. Louis Cardinals. We've had a few down years the last couple of years, so there's nothing to really brag about now. But we've also had more championships in the National League than any other team in baseball. The only team in baseball that has more championships than us is the Yankees, but they have deep pockets, so they buy their championships, so I put an asterisk next to theirs. What I enjoyed about the St. Louis Cardinals is, again, I'm a 4th generation Cardinal fan, and when I was a kid, our annual vacation, me, Mom, and Dad, would be to go to St. Louis and watch the Redbirds play every summer. I loved it. Of course, back then, I thought I was the next third baseman. I can't really hit a curveball, so it didn't really work out, so now I work. But my best vacation was when my parents and I, and a good friend of mine, his brother and his parents, we all went to St. Louis together when I was about 10-year-old, and we had a blast. And that was probably my favorite family vacation. So during the football season, the Green Bay Packers. Baseball season, the St. Louis Cardinals. I really can't find a way to use acumen in this speech. But that is my favorite team. Thank you, Toastmaster.
What is your favorite hobby, Michael?
This is hard for me to answer because I have several hobbies that I'm quite fond of. I'm currently really in love with rock climbing, weightlifting, and also violin. But for my favorite hobby, I would have to go with violin because I'm probably the most accomplished in all my hobbies in violin, and also I've done it for the longest time, since 5th grade in fact, so about 7 years. And although there are ups and downs in my passion for violin, I don't always feel like I'm walking into the practice room to do something that I love most in life, but I do it every day because it's a routine for me. And because of that routine, I'm able to perform beautifully when I really need to. And those moments give me a lot of euphoria. Now, I think my numerous years of practice definitely give me the acumen to speak to this subject. So I would say that violin is my favorite hobby for the patience it has taught me in the hours I had to spend perfecting tiny little passages that people hear for 1 or 2 seconds, but to me they're very important. And also in the attention to detail that I've also applied to other areas of my life. Thank you.
Would you rather be a gymnast or a cheerleader? Okay.
The question was whether or not I'd like to be a gymnast or a teenage, or a cheerleader. Honestly, I don't know. I've actually never done either of them. Well, I may have done gymnastics back in 1st or 2nd grade. Wow, I've managed to do the hands. I managed to do a split. Oh my gosh, I managed to flip. But that was something I did years and years ago. And now I don't think I have the mental acumen to do either of those things because I just haven't done them in some. And you know, in cheerleading, when they stack up onto each other and they have to like hold people up, I could never do that. Imagine if you drop the person, or if you're the person on top and you just fall. So no. And then for gymnastics gets slightly more tolerable because you can kind of choose what you want to do, and I guess there are more options. So yeah, I would like to become a gymnast rather than a cheerleader because I would have no idea on what to do for being a cheerleader. And as a gymnast, I believe that I would have more benefits from doing it, such as flexibility, muscle strength, and just pure determination.
Would you rather live in a mansion with no electricity or live in a really tiny house with electricity? Tim.
So the question was, would I rather live in a mansion with no electricity or a tiny home with electricity? Well, it's kind of a hard choice, but I'd probably have to go with a small home with electricity because I don't think I could ever live without electricity. That means no lights, no air conditioning, no Wi-Fi, no internet, no nothing basically. No fridge also, so no food. So that's a kind of problem you have there. I'll be living in this humongous house, all dark, by myself, probably, or with my family maybe, but I doubt they want to live there. And that's basically, at that point, a haunted house. A humongous, ginormous haunted house. You have no lights, nothing. You're just there alone, nothing. No electricity also means you have no phone because you don't have battery for your phone. Therefore, you also have like no means of communication. You're basically just living in a haunted house. And a small, tiny house with electricity is actually quite nice if you think about it the other way. It's a small home. Unless you're claustrophobic, then I'm sorry, I don't know. You have to live in a haunted house then. But like a small cozy home, I'm fine with a little room. Currently, I'm living in my computer room with a bunk bed, which is really small, about the size of this table is a bunk bed, so the room is about like that big, maybe to half this table to half that table. So I wouldn't say it's a pretty small room I'm living in right now because I have a lot of people in my house. And I find it quite comfortable because, you know, I kind of like a small space. It's cozy, it's nice, you can have everything around me. Don't need to like figure everything out. I have small little corner for my computer, small little corner for my bed, and then on top I just have my clothes and everything else. So it's like an organized chaos, but it's nice and cozy. So I'd rather live in a small home with electricity. Thank you.
Would you rather be able to time travel in the future or time travel in the past?
Who hasn't had a question?
The question was whether time travel in the future or time travel in the past. I feel like both options have good value to it. If you go to the past, you can visit maybe family members, maybe figure out some deeper secrets of history. But also, if you go in the future, you can see what your future could look like. Like if you go, let's say 100 years, the future could be a lot different. Because 100 years back, it was also a lot different. So if it were me though, I would choose being in the future. Because I don't want to bring up dead curses with me if I go back or anything bad. So I'd rather see what the future has to hold for me instead of the past. Also, there's a lot of technology, a lot of new people. Maybe it might be cyborgs, you never know. But I just want to see what the future holds for us and see how everything changes, like schools. You can see how travel changes. We might be traveling to different planets. You never really know. So I would choose traveling to the future. Thank you.
Would you rather have $1 million, but you could only go to one store, or $1,000 and you can go anywhere you want?
So the question is, if I have, do I rather have $1 million and go to one store, or have $1,000 to go to several stores? That's a tough question. That really depends on what kind of store. If that one store is dealers and have a grocery section in it, then that would be the store I want to go with $1 million. I can get everything over there. So, talking about $1 million is so good. Why not want that? It's $1 million, and I can go shop anything I want. The Christmas season is coming up, so definitely I need to get a lot of Christmas gifts for my friends and families. That $1 million will come in handy. I'm not sure $1,000 will cover that, especially when we have so many club members here. So yes, $1 million for a single store. Thank you.
So you could take the $1 million and just go to Amazon. Everything.
Yes.
Is that everything?
Yes.
Also, would you consider the stock market a store?
Oh.
So now, I'll get back to it.
What if you time travel 100 years to the past, except you gain money and put that in the stock market?
Or you could travel back.
You would lose it all in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
You lose it all in 08 again.
Next, I'd like to bring up our first evaluator, Tim.
So I am the first evaluator for the speech. First off, I apologize. I was listening a bunch in there and I still never caught the name of the war correctly. I believe I heard it was Anglo.
Anglo Zen
Zanzibar. Okay, thank you. So I would like to say that was a wonderful historical speech you gave, and as I am personally not a very big fan of history or anything social studies, I would like to say that you got my attention really well in there. And I felt like I was able to pay attention pretty well. It felt like a kind of a story you told. So I really want to say that's a really good point you did. And since this is about organizing your speech, your tone and everything was really great. I felt like you already prepared quite a lot for it, since you were able to talk and go in a pretty well formatted speech. And I'd say it seemed like you were really well prepared. You had it organized really well. So that was really good. So for preparation, I give that a 5. And organization, I'd also give that a 5. And then next up is transitions. There's a wonderful transitional chart right there. And I did hear a lot of transitions you said. I heard first, second to start, and then conclusion, which was really nice. You formatted it. I felt like it was like a 3-part. You gave context, you gave information about the battle, and then you ended up with the conclusion of the big overview of everything. So that was really great on transitions. So that's wonderful. I get that a 5. Perfect transitions. And then next up is speech value. It was really interesting. I feel like, since I said before, I'm not really a social studies person, but that war, you said you had a really good hook in the beginning. You said it lasted for only an hour.
Well, it lasted 38 minutes.
Oh, 38 minutes. Okay, that's even crazier to me. Because everybody hears war, you'd be like, oh, speaking of the Ukraine and Russian war that's been going on for years, and they'd be like, oh, a 38-minute war. That's really interesting. So that hooked me in. Really great hook there. So I give you a 5 for that also. Great speech. And then your body, which was the main topic, your whole information about the war. I felt you kind of told it like a narrative, kind of this chronological order, and then talked about how the British gave the order for them to fire, and he was like, oh, they probably won't do that. I was like, no, maybe not. And then you're like, it's kind of an interesting point of view to give. So I really found that interesting. So that was really great. And overall, I say you had great transitions, great organization for your speech. So that was wonderful. Maybe one thing you could improve on was, I heard in there was a little bit of places where it was kind of mix and match the words. It's split, had a little pause and then had to recover, but that's always normal in everybody's speeches. I have it a bunch too. So it's just, overall, you had a great speech. Maybe just improve a little bit more on the flow of it, and then that'd be it. So really great job.
Thank you, Tim. And I guess with the decisive victory in 38 minutes, it was probably the wrong decision to call the British's bluff. Next up, I'll be evaluating Sophia's icebreaker. Sophia, great start on your icebreaker. I think you have a strong foundation to be an excellent speaker. I think with a few more speeches, you will be exceptional. You seem very comfortable in front of the crowd. You spoke loud and clear. It was easy to understand, a good pace. Your body language was strong. Your speech was written in a chronological order. We learned who you was as a young lady in Taipei, and as you moved to California, and then here in the wonderful town of Germantown. The best of all three, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I'd like to encourage you to do is, although your speech was well written, every point you seem to look at your phone to get the next point. So I would say rehearse your speech a few more times, know what you're going to say, especially being an icebreaker in your life, so you know yourself more than anybody, right? But minor thing, you did not use very many filler words. You had one or two, but overall pretty good. Did not use the word of the day. Work on that acumen. But overall, really, really good. Like I said, you seem really comfortable in front of the crowd, and that's the hardest part, right? So as you continue giving speeches, you're going to be a great speaker. So it'll be interesting to see where you wind up at the end of your journey here at the Gavel Club, because you have a bright future. Whether you go in the medical field or law or wherever you go, these communication skills are going to benefit you. And I think you're going to be a natural speaker. So good job, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Xavier for our timeless report.
All right. So first up, We had a first speech from Kennedy at 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So excellent the time. And next we had Sophia with 4 minutes and 7 seconds. So for your first speech on your icebreaker, you did an excellent job just getting right there in time. Next are table topics. First up, we had Isaac with 1 minute, 2 seconds. Second was Mia with 35 seconds. Third was Horace with 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Amora with 1 minute on the dot. Amira with 29 seconds. Me with 1 minute, 9 seconds. Jason with 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Michael with 1 minute, 14 seconds. Kate with 1 minute, 23 seconds. Tim with 1 minute, 51 seconds. I didn't catch the second to last speaker. They were at 59 seconds, just under that minute. And Miss Anna with 1 minute, 9 seconds. Next was our evaluations. Tim with 3 minutes on the dot, and Mr. Jason Pendergrass with 1 minute and 30. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Next up, I'll bring up Amir or Marion for her report.
So, starting with Kennedy's speech, Kennedy have 2 followers, 0 use of the word of the day. Sophia's speech has 8 followers and 0 use of the word of the day. On table topic, Isaac had 0 followers and 0 use of the word of the day. We have 1 filler word, no use of the word of the day. Mr. Taylor had 0 followers and 0 use of the word of the day. Laura had 2 followers, 0 use of the word of the day. I had 2 followers and 0 use of the word of the day. Xavier had 0 followers and 0 use of the word of the day. Mr. Jason had 0 followers and 1 use of the word of the day. Michael had 1 follower, 1 use of the word of the day. Kate had 1 forward, 1 use of the word of the day. 10 had 0 followers, 0 use of the word of the day. Celestia had 1 forward, 0 use of the word of the day. Miss Anna had 1 forward, 0 use of the word of the day. 10's evaluation had 1 followers and 0 use of the word of the day. Mr. Jason's evaluation had 0 followers and 1 use of the word of the day.
Next, I'll call up our general evaluator,
For today's meeting, we did start on time, and then we also had a good timing for the introduction to the roles as well as the start of the speeches. We heard from Kennedy with a very interesting speech and educational speech on the Anglo-Zanzibar War, and an excellent icebreaker from Sophia. Then we had a very good table topic session by our Clutch Table Topics Master, Diana. Then we had 2 good evaluations that provided good insights by Mr. Pendergrass and Tim. And we finished up today with good session.
Thank you, Toastmasters. That concludes today's meeting.
We don't have meeting next week.
Yeah, we don't have a meeting next week because of the holiday.
It's a holiday, Thanksgiving, yes. Thank you, everybody, and it's a great meeting. And it's all around going great. Everybody feel very comfortable with their speeches, and wonderful job from Table Topic Master, Diana. Yes, and everybody's table topic is great. I really enjoyed everybody's. So next week we don't have a meeting. The last meeting of this semester is December the 1st. So I have Plastia doing the icebreaker. So I'll put him here.